Today, we are going to talk about how to talk to kids about death and what words to use. Word usage is really important. And with the word dead, there are a lot of euphemisms that are out there. For example, a common one, instead of saying dead, is people say that someone passed away. But what does that really mean to a child? It's not clear. You also might hear that someone expired. And a child knows that the milk expires in the refrigerator and you pour it down the drain. Or that someone kicked the bucket, which isn't that a child's game or a version of a child's game? A lot of times people say that someone's gone or they're gone forever, which is also kind of difficult to understand for a little one because their parent went to work and they were gone, but they came back, or they were gone on a vacation, but they came back. So that can be confusing too. Another common one we hear is that someone went to sleep forever, which actually really can be scary for a child because if they now think that someone went to sleep forever, it can make them scared to go to sleep. And we see that in kids that come into sandcastles. We know that kids are concrete thinkers, especially in their younger years, younger than 7, 8, 9-year-olds. They're very concrete thinkers and they know what they can grasp, see, feel, hear, and touch. And death is an abstract concept, especially if a family's belief system is the person died and went to heaven. Heaven is not a place they can go to and come back from. So that can be very confusing. So we really focus on the word dead as a good word to use to help to explain it. But even then, it can get a little tricky because they play video games and a player dies and then comes back for another round of the game just by pushing a button. Their experience with death may also come from TV shows or movies, and it can be very scary or very unclear. So that is why at Sandcastles, we advocate to use the word dead. Through clearing up their perception of it and helping to educate them as we go through, it is a word that is the least confusing and the most concrete in their grief journey.
And when we're having these conversations with kids, I think one of the easiest ways to think about it and the most concrete, especially for those little kids, is to think about what makes the body alive and then what happens to the body when someone dies. So thinking about when you're alive, your heart beats, you can breathe and you can think and speak and move and all these different things that your body does when you are alive. And then consequently, when the body dies, it's the opposite of all those things. Your heart no longer beats, your lungs no longer work, your brain stops working and allowing you to think or speak or move. And so we like to think about those things when explaining death to children. And we also like to be careful about what words we're using. And so we're using specific language with young children about how someone dies, like the cause of death. And at Sandcastles, we really like to use the 3 varies. So very, 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 very old, very, very, very sick, and very, very, very hurt. And using each of those, depending on the circumstance, helps the child to understand that when they're hurt, maybe with a stubbed toe, well, they're not very, very, very hurt. Because a lot of times children become afraid after a loss for themselves or for the people around them, the people they care about after a death occurs, that something might happen to them or to someone who's taking care of them, someone else in their house or their life. And so using that language that, the person who died was very, very, very sick, and using that language helps to make things more concrete for the children and also helps to clear up that understanding when someone in the house is maybe just sick with a cold or someone is hurt with a stubbed toe and things like that.
And with that, we are very firm advocates about telling the truth about the death, knowing that sometimes that can be really, really, really hard to do. Yet it's very important. And mainly because whatever the truth is that we tell our children is what they grieve. And we want that grief journey to be a good and a healthy one. So they need to know the truth. Children have access, especially teenagers, right? The older they get, the more access they have to Google searches or to even listening to what other people are saying on the phone in the other room, or to the rumors that go around their community or their school. They have access to information. And when we try to protect our children by not disclosing the actual cause of the death or the circumstances surrounding it, it leaves the opportunity for our kids to find out that truth somewhere else and then to potentially have to grieve that later. So we really want a safe, kind, caring, loving person to be helping to explain the death and the circumstances around the death at an age appropriate level to kids when they learn this information. And we want to start them off on a as healthy of a grief journey as possible.
And these aren't easy conversations to have. And it is hard to figure out the right words to say when someone is dying or there's been a death. So reach out to a professional if you need help with how to talk to your children about death. And feel free to contact us at Sandcastles. If we can be of any service, please give us a call.